In today's episode, we are going to cover something called the 10 things I wish I knew as a beginner lifter. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Number one, progressive overload is king. Do you agree?
Yes.
So, what it means is you must gradually increase the stress placed on your body or your muscles over a period of time in order to get either bigger or stronger. Okay. A 2021 review by Schoenfeld et al. Confirmed that progressively increasing volume or intensity to is fundamental to hypertrophy
Okay.
and strength gains. So, what that means is essentially from session to session, you want to be finding ways to increase the stimulus, whether that's in the form of repetitions, whether that's in the form of weight, whether that's even in the form of sets. Now, a practical tip for you guys is to track your lifts, and as I mentioned, aim to increase either the reps, weight, or sets over the weeks. Apps like there are many apps. There are so many apps out there that can help you track these things. And if not, if you're old school, like someone like Arvin, maybe just a notebook.
Yeah, I actually have like a notepad in my phone. I mean, it's simple as that, simply because, trust me, you'll never remember what you did last week.
No,
So just write it down.
just write it down. Just write. Even if you do, right, you're not going to remember what you did like 6 months ago. And another cool thing about it is it actually can set as a motivating tool for you, because it's pretty cool to see where you are 1 year from now.
Yeah.
Especially whether it's training, photos, or even food.
Yeah.
Right? Let's moving on to number 2. Volume and intensity must be balanced. Training more isn't always better. I don't know why people think more is better. It really is not. Recovery, getting adequate recovery, is super paramount when it comes to making gains.
Yeah, I think that's something that's very important. I mean, going back to the episode that we just covered last week, talking about the minimum effective dose, right?
Yep.
It's a common thing that I actually have to discuss or explain to some of my patients who actually come in with injuries, and I ask them, like, okay, tell me how many sets are you doing? And they tell me X amount of sets. I'm like, why are you doing so much? And weren't you making gains with half the amount before this? The answer is they don't know, because they've never tried. So they've never tried the method that we normally use. Is you start with probably the lowest effective dose. So in hypertrophy is about 12 sets per week, right? So you try with 12 first and see whether you're making any meaningful gains.
Correct.
And say you still are, then there's no real reason for you to continuously ramp up the volume. You can still work on the number of the repetitions you do or the load you use. And once that becomes not effective, then you start ramping up the volume. And of course, you can add up volume as you go, but you should not be doing it too rapidly either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, research from Dr. Mike Israel, which is the chief scientist from Renaissance Periodization, very, very smart guy. He actually wrote a book called The Volume Landmarks, which defines this very thing. So there's something called MV, MEV, MAV, and MRV, which essentially means MV is your maintenance volume, MEV is your maximum
Minimum effective.
minimum effective volume. MAV is your maximum adaptive volume, and MRV is your maximum recoverable volume. So
Correct.
how much volume that you can recover from. So he wrote this book, or he authored this book, to determine how much work you need to perform or elicit growth without overtraining. Very nice. It was a paper, or was it a book?
I think it was more like he did a write up about it.
He did a write-up. It wasn't a book.
You guys,
sorry.
you
It's not a
guys should go look it up, because I think he has covered like different muscle groups as well, like hamstring, how much you should do, because apparently different muscle groups can handle different kinds of volume, and say like probably your chest can handle more, or your
Yes.
quad can handle more than your hamstrings, and so on and so forth.
Correct.
So it's a good thing to read.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to read.
Aside from that, a meta-analysis by Grigic et al. In 2018 supports moderate to high volume, which is 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week for optimal hypertrophy.
Sweet spot.
Sweet spot. So this can be found in the Journal of Sports Science in the 2018 publication. Practical tip for you guys out there: don't blindly follow high volume, especially if you're new to training and you see your favorite fitness icon doing like 16 sets or 20 sets on his chest. Let's just remember, he is that size for a reason, and he didn't just start off where you start off doing that much. He obviously built up to it, and you should also do the same.
Yeah.
So don't just blindly follow whatever you see, hear, or listen in the gym about people. Everybody's different. Learn what's optimal for your recovery and your growth. Number 3, consistency beats intensity.
Anytime.
Anytime. I honestly feel that this is so important. Consistency beats intensity every time. Showing up to the gym 3 to 4 times a week for a year will get you better results than training 7 days a week in the gym, hands down. The people that get the most amount of success, whether that's in training or in life, are the people that are consistently showing up.
Correct.
Okay, that's basically how you get successful at anything. You fail once, you show up the next day, you try again. You fail, you try again, you show up. It was a have you heard of the book Atomic Habits?
Mm-hmm.
So habits form through repetition, and reward is what enables the individual to achieve this level of goal that they have set in mind. So James Clear, which is the author of Atomic Habits, talks in great detail of how people can why is it not only important to form habits, but how to go about forming habits, how to get out of bad habits, how to set good habits. Highly recommend that book. Here's a picture of it. There's another study in the Health and Psychology Review in 2016 by Lally et al. That shows habit formation takes up to 66 days of consistency, not perfection. 66 days of consistency, not perfection. You don't have to get it right. And I feel that's where people fall off. They think that if they don't get it perfect, they must well not do it, or they just fall off. You can see it everywhere, in training and even in diet.
Yeah, I think that's a very important part of us as coaches as well.
Of course.
Like, people expect to get it right on the first 1-2 weeks of training with us.
Yeah.
Or because I'm training, I should get it right in 2 weeks. I'm like, it's not that easy.
Of the 7 days in a week, you say like, my diet for that one day was bad. I might as well just eat like crap for the rest of the week and start next week.
Yeah.
That kind of mindset is equivalent to that. I've got one flat tire. I might as well slash the other 3.
I knew you were going to say that.
And it's like the most. It's like the most like real easy to think of.
Yeah, that's true.
So don't. Basically, the tip for you guys is start small. Do not try to be perfect. All right. I've learned this not just in fitness, but in many aspects of my life, especially when it comes to content creation. I've spoken to some very, very smart, very knowledgeable people, people who are very good at content creation, and they all have the similar sayings. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to keep putting it out. And even if it was perfect, not everything you put out is going to be a hit. Right? That's just how the algorithm works, and that's just how things are. Number 4, diet is more important than supplements. Yes, taking supplements does give you an edge, but it's not everything. If and only if you're struggling to meet, say, for example, you're a working adult, or even you're a new parent, or a parent in general, and you have kids, right? Maybe you don't have time to cook, but you need to find ways to increase your protein intake. Supplements come in. Creatine monohydrate, supplements come in. You can't get 5 grams of creatine monohydrate from foods alone. That's 1 kilo of salmon?
Yeah, there's a lot of money for.
Yeah, that's approximately 1 kilo of salmon to churn out about 4 grams.
And on top of that, you got to eat it raw. So I don't think that's a good strategy to actually get creatine monohydrate. And plus, supplementation is so cheap. So I think creatine monohydrate falls into that exclusion of supplements that is really worth your money.
Yep.
Everything else, I think, is pretty much optional. Yeah.
Pretty much optional. Whey protein. I mean, creatine is like higher.
Yeah.
And then whey protein.
Whey protein, I think, comes out of convenience.
Yeah. So a 2022 review in the Nutrients publication by JISSN, they confirm, as I mentioned in the Hyrox episode, like 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram per day is crucial for hypertrophy. Most supplements, well, except for creatine, caffeine, and beta-alanine, have minor effects in comparison. So that's something to keep in mind when you guys are picking out your supplements, because let's be honest, eating healthy, quote unquote healthy on its own, is not cheap. Especially if you're a larger individual like myself. Like, the bigger you become, the more you have to eat, and the more quality food that you have to put into yourself, it's not cheap.
Correct.
Right? So, practical tip for you guys: nail your protein, nail your calorie intake. Make sure you get your hydration and nutrient timing down. Again, the nutrient timing is not so important. Just calories and macros done. Then look into supplements if you need it. Number 5, sleep is an underrated performance enhancer.
Couldn't stress that more.
This is coming from a dad of 2 kids, one just 4 months old. Yeah. But no, honestly speaking, sleep is the most important tool when it comes to recovery. Poor sleep wrecks your gains. There is a study that shows a study by JAMA in 2011, which they had in the Frontiers of Physiology. 2 papers, JAMA in 2011 and Frontiers in Physiology in 2018, that show sleeping less than 6 hours can reduce muscle protein synthesis and testosterone levels. Very important to remember. Less than 6 hours. How many hours are you getting of sleep?
On a good day, I probably get 5 hours divided into like 4 slots.
Yeah. Can you imagine like how much stronger, how much you'd be? Like, I tell you, if you got 8 hours, I think your hair will grow back. 8 hours straight. Your hair just will come back.
Okay, now that's pushing it too far.
Okay. In another similar study that showed athletes who slept more had improved reaction time, mood, and training intensity. Which at this point you can tell. You can easily tell if you have 8 hours of good quality sleep, sometimes 9, and then you go to the gym, you feel like you can carry the world.
Yeah.
Versus you had 4 hours of sleep, or in your case, like 5 hours broken up into 4 slots, and then you go to the gym.
It's not optimal. And you know, if you have too little sleep, apparently it says equivalent to drinking some amount of alcohol and driving also.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's how sleepy you feel, and lack of sleep also disrupts fat loss.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so less than 5 hours of sleep versus 9 hours of sleep, less than 5 hours of sleep, you're going to get 50% lesser fat loss.
Mm-hmm.
So that itself, so it really harms multiple things. And I always tell people, like, try not to, ice baths and ice immersions and sauna rooms and everything for recovery. But when you ask them how much sleep are you getting, I'm getting about 4.5 hours, 5 hours of sleep.
That's like putting a band-aid on a stab.
Exactly. That's literally majoring in the minors.
Exactly.
Sleep is definitely far more important.
Aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep, of quality sleep. And especially if you're a high-performing athlete, you need more than 8 hours.
But let's say, my scenario.
Yeah.
It's not ideal.
Yep.
But that's how life is.
That is how life is.
So how would you help someone address that?
Okay, realistically, you can't really like wiggle out that. You have 5 hours of slots broken up, right? Naps throughout the day does help.
Exactly.
That's like the best thing I can give in terms of advice, or send your kids off to somewhere for like 2 weeks. Your parents' in-laws' house. That's another thing.
I think naps are quite powerful when it comes to actually helping that part.
Yeah, but the naps thing. Here's the thing: naps are very tricky. It's a hit or miss for some people. You either have a 30-minute nap, wake up feeling recharged, or you have a 2-hour nap and you feel just like really bad.
I think too long of a nap makes you feel very groggy.
Yep.
That becomes like a really short sleep instead. I think you're right. 30 minutes I think sounds pretty good.
Yeah. So you can use things like blue light filters, a wind down routine, and a consistent bedtime schedule. Everything it's all about scheduling really. If you train your body to 9 p.m. unwind, 9:30 I'm in bed, 10 p.m. lights out. Having a room that's really dark, blackout curtains, you have an AC. What I do is you can either turn off the light from the AC, or if you don't have that button, you just tape it over.
Oh yeah.
So keep everything dark, and you'll just notice how much better your sleep improves. So number 6, proper form is more important than lifting heavy early on. Very important in that early on, because as you advance in your years of training, you'll realize that, for example, you see the more advanced athletes, the more advanced trainees, they're swinging with their bicep curls, and it can be okay for them. In fact, it's totally fine if it helps them achieve those 1 to 2 last reps, because let's face it, when you reach that stage, you're pretty much lifting some serious weight. But early on, you need to develop that level of control. Then you can swing or use momentum.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it is improper form. I think it's using a bit more advanced techniques to get there. So I don't think that's suitable for someone who's new.
Yep.
Because if you don't nail down those proper techniques from the very start, then you don't know how far from that can you deviate.
Correct.
You know, so you need to know where is this proper form first, and then eventually you will learn how to adapt or deviate depending on how good or how your leverages are.
Correct. So chasing numbers without good form almost always leads to injury. That's a fact. Bad movement patterns under load increases the joint stress and injury risk. This was a paper by Zadowski and Kramer from the Science and Practice of Strength Training, which was a book that was written in 2006. Another thing about the NSCA Essentials in Strength Conditioning, they talked about motor learning research. Learning correct technique earlier on actually builds better neural and motor control than if you were to just like wing it. You see? What you can do for this particular point is record yourself lifting. You can record yourself lifting. You can see how you look like when you're lifting, because most people think they're doing something correctly until they see their form and they go like, oh, I thought my back was straight when I was deadlifting, but turns out it wasn't. That's probably why I felt my back more than my quads or my hamstrings or whatever. So record yourself. Other than that, or besides that, if you have a little bit more money to spare, hire a coach. It doesn't have to be a one-to-one. It can be even a remote coach. Like Arvin and myself, we both do remote coaching. It's a lot more affordable for clientele who can't meet us in person or can't afford one-to-one sessions. So remote coaching is much better, more practical too. And get feedback regularly. That's the most important thing.
Correct.
Number 7, strength does not equal size.
That's true.
That is true. But they help each other. That is something to remember. So a good example would be powerlifters. When you see powerlifters in the, say, 74 kg, is it 74?
Yeah,
the 74 kg weight class, they look like your average office person, maybe just a bit bigger, but the weights that they move is serious, like some serious weight. What's the current national record?
I don't know. Deadlift is already approaching, I think 270.
270 to 270 kilograms.
Yeah. Well, the under 66 is already hitting almost 300.
Under 66 kg, almost hitting a 300 deadlift?
Yeah, deadlift.
So, training for strength and hypertrophy aren't identical. Strength gains are largely neurological,
correct,
right? In the early stages, while hypertrophy comes from mechanical tension, volume, and metabolic stress. So, these are very important things to remember, because let's put it in another example. When you train for strength, what you're doing is you're essentially teaching your current muscles, the tissue, how to produce force or produce force better. But they will get bigger over time. It's just that how the rate of growth takes substantially longer. Like you will get bigger, but it's not like as if you were training specifically for hypertrophy. Whereas you would get bigger much quicker, much faster, but you wouldn't get that level of strength a person training for strength would. So that's the different adaptations.
Correct.
But let's be honest, who doesn't want to be big and jack? That was my goal when I first started. I wanted to be just big and strong. I didn't just want to just be big. I wanted to be like big and like Hercules kind of, you know. So that's what I mean by it. They're not the same, but they always help each other.
Correct.
Because when you train for hypertrophy, what you're essentially doing is you're increasing the cross-sectional area, which is the size of the tissue, right? And that means more or newer muscles to recruit to get stronger later on. So let's just say from a context of a person starting off strength training, he's reached the ceiling for how much his current amount of tissue can produce force. So let's just say he's reached the absolute limits of his weight class. So in that case, what he'd have to do is he's obviously going to go into the next weight class to become stronger, right? So in order to do that, he has to put on more muscle, which increases his weight. And the new muscle which he puts on, he has to teach that or get the new acquired muscle to become strong. So that's how things work. They help each other.
Great.
Practical tip for you guys: understand your goals. If you want size, prioritize hypertrophy work. If you want strength, lower the reps and increase the load, and also work on the skill of the movement. Don't
but-
just blindly. Another thing, when it comes to improving strength, you want to have a little bit more emphasis on compound movements, because those are the ones that have more bang for your buck. You can say that, I want to get strong, but don't do the leg press and go 300 kgs, and then like on the squat you can barely do 100 kgs. That doesn't really make sense. Number 8, deloads and recovery are essential. You grow when you rest, not when you train. A lot of times people think that going to the gym, training the muscles, building, getting sore, that's when the muscles are growing. That's not when the muscles are growing. The muscles are growing the most when you are resting. It's the time when your body has like, okay, there's nothing happening, let's patch up the holes here and there. But when you're training, it's like they can't do anything.
Yeah.
It's kind of like road works. The reason why they do road works when there's no cars on the road, because it's easier to do it.
Yeah.
You don't do road works when there's a full highway, except if you're in Malaysia. I've seen some like road works happening in like
Right, peak hour
peak
time.
hours.
Like,
Oh my god!
Really? Yeah, that's true. Majority of the like protein synthesis,
Yes.
simply because when you're working out, there is degradation going on.
Correct.
It's just that your body focuses on synthesis during the rest period.
Correct.
Okay, so that's when you want to kind of, it starts piling on the muscle mass. But for me personally, over the years, now that I've trained many clients, I feel like deload is something that has to be earned as well. Okay, recovery is one thing. Having good amount of sleep, rest periods between training days. So you could train 4 times a week, you're resting 3 times a week. Okay, but talking about a deload, I mean, reduction in training volume and intensity, I think that has to be earned a little bit.
Yep.
Basically, you have to train hard enough for you to deserve a deload.
Correct.
So a deload is not for everybody.
It is not for everybody.
Yeah. So essentially, normally most of my clients, I give them a deload only somewhere between 8 to 12 weeks once, simply because they have not hit the threshold that requires a deload. All right. But what I've seen is once they hit that first 12 weeks, then you kind of know where the intensity is. So your following block is already going to start off somewhat harder. And then they probably get a deload anywhere within 4 to 6 weeks from there.
Correct.
Yeah.
So take it like this: if you're someone who's an office individual, training twice a week with your trainer, there's a very strong chance you don't need to deload.
Correct.
You can essentially, and in theory, keep going for months and years on end without ever having to take a deload.
I've not deloaded in 3 months.
See, he's not deloading in months. So versus someone who's a competitive athlete, take example the 66 kg powerlifter, he trains 4 or 5 times a week, or 4 times a week. Maybe he even trains 3, but between 3 to 4 times a week. But the weights in which he's moving are so heavy and so neurologically demanding that he must or has to take a deload at week number 4, 5, or 6, depending on what's his block of training. Bodybuilder, I train 5 days a week. Hypertrophy, not as neurologically demanding, but with the weights I'm moving and progressing from week to week, my joints begin to hurt. There are telltale signs that your body needs a deload, and it can come in a form of, touchwood, injury. Hopefully it doesn't reach there, but prior to the injury, your joints begin to hurt. Your mood towards training actually becomes lesser. Your appetite decreases. Your sleep gets interrupted.
You ache a little bit more.
Yes, your recovery takes much more longer to happen, despite all variables being controlled. So that's usually when you would opt for a rest week or a deload week or something along those lines.
Yeah. Okay.
But remember, if you're training twice a week, like what Arvind said, you haven't earned that level of training. You haven't earned that rest. You haven't hit that level of training. So a 2020 review by Zaroni et al. Emphasized that strategic deloads, which is what Arvind mentioned just now, which is periods of reduced training volume or intensity, prevents something called overtraining, and in turn optimizes gains. Okay, so practical tip: every 4 to 6 weeks, reduce volume and intensity by 40 to 60% for a week. And I want to put a very important point out there that deloads should be reactive more than proactive. So what that means is that when you create a program, you don't say, oh, I'm going to take a deload on week number 5.
Yeah.
No, you go through the program, and then after the 4th week, you assess, okay, can I push it another week?
Correct.
Because if you can push it another week, that's one more week of training volume that you would have gotten in, versus you feeling fine and still going ahead with the deload and wasting out a lot of gains.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily static that this week, this training block, you needed 4 weeks to get a deload. The next training block with 5 weeks to get a deload.
Yeah.
Because you could have a better month ahead.
Correct.
You could have a good training month ahead, and you feel like your body is just recovering much better because probably getting better sleep, nutrition is good, work stress is lesser, life stress is lesser. You're probably adapting really well. Then you could go to that 5th week, maybe 6th
Correct.
week, and then you might need a deload. So, like what Luke said, you probably have to review your training block every single time to see whether you require the deload or not, or can I do an extra week, because that will be an extra gain. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the issue with being proactive with deloads is that you actually run the risk of taking way more breaks in a year than you would if you were to have a more reactive approach.
Correct.
So think about it like this: like in 1 year, if you were to say 5 weeks of training, 1 deload, you would probably hit in the upwards of 12 to probably 15 weeks of deload weeks, when in fact you could have just gotten fine with 5 or 6. So that's a potential 8 to 10 weeks of training you missed. Training that could have made you bigger, stronger, faster, whatever. Okay.
Correct.
Number 9, track progress and feedback loops help to accelerate your gains. So important, and it still blows my mind that people don't actually track their stuff. You know, they still go off, oh, you know, last week I remember I did this, but okay, fine, you can remember at most 2 weeks what you did. What about 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Tracking is so important.
Correct.
If you're not tracking, you're guessing. Simple as that.
Correct.
If you're not tracking, you're guessing. Feedback loops are key to performance improvements, right? A paper by Erickson et al. Called the Deliberate Practice Theory, which was published in 1993, shows that people who track their performances and create these positive feedback loops always lead to much more better results at the end. And what you guys can do, as I mentioned just now, there's so many apps that you can use to like log your workouts, take weekly photos. Like for my clients, I have an app I use. I use Everfit, I use Train Heroic, and I use Excel for those remote coaching clients as well. They have a series of things they should always do to check in. I review it on a weekly basis, and I send feedback to them. Data, and this is super important, data removes emotion from decision making. Right? If you're guessing, then you're just going to be in a big loop. Last but not least, number 10, your mental state, environment, and support network matter. Motivation is temporary. Environment and mindset are key. Right? If you have the right mindset, you have the right environment, there's nothing you can't accomplish. It's such a bold statement to make, but I feel that if you have these two things, and obviously like a great support network is part of the environment, like you can do it, you can conquer the world. I for one am blessed to have a great support system. Yourself, the editor behind this. I'm breaking the fourth wall. So what psychology research actually shows is that, and this is a study by a guy named Baumeister et al. In 2014. He found that environment, design, and identity-based habits are more predictive of long-term adherence than motivation alone.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, obviously motivation gets you through the door, but it's not something that's going to keep you going through that door and the multiple doors that come ahead.
Correct.
So I like to think of this example as, okay, motivation gets you through the door, and it keeps you going for a bit, and then you stumble across a huge problem or mountain or whatever, and suddenly if you just rely on motivation, you're not going to climb that mountain. You know, is motivation, the moment motivation disappears, you can be like, it's too big, let me just try another door. and then it's just a negative feedback stuff.
Correct.
A 2022 meta-analysis in the psychology of sport and exercise sciences found that people with gym partners or communities had 30% better adherence rate, which is something that we are seeing with running, the running club, or running in general is becoming such a huge thing. High Rocks, when CrossFit first came out, it was a huge thing because, and one of the main things people liked about it was that it was a community-based thing. Like you weren't alone. Gym is the same thing. You're not alone in it.
Yeah, I think it becomes a lot more acceptable when you have a community that enjoys what you enjoy. Then you get to share the same ideas, the same talk, discuss the same topics. I could see the why it's becoming so likable, running or High Rocks or CrossFit in general.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a good way to encourage exercise.
It's a good way to socialize and stay healthy at a time.
Yeah, I think that's good.
A tip for you guys is to create a support system. Tell people your goals. Maybe you'll find people like-minded as yourself. You'd be surprised, You'd be surprised how many people share similar goals to you, and train in places that inspire you.
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough. If you go to the wrong gym, there are some very toxic gyms out there that have this like alpha mentality mindset. If you're not like in the top 3, you don't belong here, kind of things. Find a place where your people are there.
You accept it.
Yeah, you're accepted. So, to summarize everything, those are 10 things I wish I knew when I was a much younger lifter. And if I had known the things I know now back then, I would be
Probably bigger.
way bigger, way stronger, way bigger.
You probably have better calves.
Better calves too, for sure, 110%. Resistance training is one of the best things you can do, honestly, for your health, your physique, your mind, your mental state. If there's one thing that you could tell your younger self now, the things that you know now, what would you say to your younger self?
Don't train 7 times a day, 7 times a week. That's probably the first thing I tell myself. I think that's the first mistake I made, and that was I think I was thankful enough that someone who was much senior told me like, you should not be training this much. You should recover.
That's it. All right. Thank you guys for watching.